Hello, everybody, and welcome to Footy Chat. This is our 13th edition. Things that look a bit different at the desk today. Lorenzo and Josh is in the main seat. Mark Woods is not in today, but undoubtedly he will be listening along, so get well soon, Woodsy. Joining me, though, is someone who was already planning to come in anyway. It's Josh, and before I welcome you formally to the show, I will notice you've been very clever here, Josh, coming in on a week where the Blues have not been playing, and so I can't lambast you on your absolutely dreadful football team. But welcome to the show anyway.
Good to be here. Yeah, it's been a while, let's be honest, but it was very strategic from my part, wasn't it?
Yes, it had nothing to do with actual other commitments you had going on.
Yeah.
So, no, it's good that you're here. It's good that I'm able to sit down and talk some football with someone. We've had some issues over the last really couple of months, but hopefully over the rest of the football season, as we're really at halfway now, basically, we'll be able to give you as much Footy Chat content as possible. It's a big week in the AFL this week. I mean, every week's a big week, but this one in particular, Fight MND, I think we're up to 11 now, 11, 12. It's even hard to keep up with track. Yeah, Melbourne Collingwood, which means the great man Neil Danaher is back in focus this week, and that was our pick of the week, courtesy of Michael Wilson, who just does. Whenever I'm in need of pick of the week, I just go straight to Wilson. He's the best in the business. This is one of these moments similar to Anzac Day and perhaps a couple of others, Anzac Eve, where the occasion is sort of bigger than the football match that's surrounded, and it'll be an interesting match with Melbourne being a bit better in the last month than they have been previously. But it's all about this great cause and this great man, won't it, Josh?
Absolutely, no. He's been the figure of this beautiful game for so many years, and it'll be great to see him back and have. Again, this is a game that's more than just a game. It's for a great cause, MND, and hopefully we see thousands of beanies around the MCG on Monday.
Absolutely. It's been one of the great initiatives and the great things that happen during the AFL season, and we look forward to all that will happen on King's birthday Monday. But as we look back, as we always do at the start, we're going to try and follow basically the same format. It won't look exactly the same, but I'm going to try and keep the hand on the kettle, so to speak, while Woodsy isn't here. Let's look back at some of the games we had, Josh, and talk about what you want to talk about. Firstly, Essendon. Teams don't like talking about good wins or good losses you can learn from. But surely Essendon could take away positively from an 18-point defeat to the Brisbane Lions that occurred on Thursday night. It was 90-72. They were in that game competitive. Essendon, they're an interesting team because
They are.
It's a bit of a slow grind for them and has been for several years, trying to work their way back up towards maybe breaking that finals drought. Who knows when that will eventually go. It's going to end at some point. But I think they can be pretty positive with that Thursday night performance, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree. No, it's obviously hard to go up to
the Gabba.
The Lions' fortress, as they call it sometimes. But no, impressive. Despite the fact not getting the win, obviously Jai Caldwell was the man standing out. 30 disposals. Nick Martin was very good. Zach Merritt as well. But couldn't get over the line. But it was a strong performance from Essendon. But the Lions were gallant at the end. They were too good.
They absolutely were. On Friday night, the Magpies won 16-11, 107 to 8-8-56. As they continue, they're the clear standout team at the moment. And as we were speaking to slow-mo Devon Scargetta before this match, a few days before this match, I was saying we're having for Collingwood to win now. At this point in June, we just don't want to see it later in the season. But the most exciting part of this match, Josh, undoubtedly, the top disposal getter was Nick Dacos with 32. But at long last, that contested mark we were all waiting for, I think it did count. It did survive the audit in the aftermath from Champion Data. I'm pretty sure it did. And funnily enough, it was a contested mark, but probably on the not the biggest contested mark by any stretch. But well done, Nick. It took you long enough, but congratulations, fully all around. Still Sidebottom 27 disposals. He's just still doing amazing things at the moment. And Pendlebury was back out there as he continues to close in on Brent Harvey's record. But Hawthorn at the moment, they're just not the same team without Day. They're just not the same team. So I know there's a lot of judgment being passed on Hawthorn. We were a bit too overreactive on them last season, early this season. I need to see them back with Day before I have any full remarks at the moment, because they're just not the same team without him. And the numbers just show that clearly.
their synergy isn't great at the moment. Again, I thought the scoreline would be a lot closer, but
Yeah, you would have thought.
51-point victory in the end.
He's a very promising.
Wasn't what I expected. I probably wouldn't think what you expected too. It was close up until the sort of first quarter, really. Then they just blew out and they just kept going. So, very, very strong win from the Pies, cementing their spot in the top position, and they look very, very good.
Absolutely. Moving on to the Saturday matches, this one was a shocker. Gold Coast, their fortress, has been overrun by the Fremantle Dockers, who retain their heavyweight belt at the moment. 11-point victors there. Doing enough to eke out a good win, a surprise win, and a bit of a setback for the Suns. Team that was looked as promising as they've ever been during an AFL season, but just a bit of a step back there with that 11-point loss. GWS somehow got over the line by 3 points, 80-77, in what it basically is guaranteed to be the last game in the career of Callan Ward, tearing his ACL during the game. I'll be honest with you, Josh. There is no player, and it includes Geelong players, there's no player in the AFL right now that I wanted to see win a premiership more than Ward.
I agree.
I thought this might be that final Cinderella. It won't be. He hasn't officially called time on his playing career just yet, but he's been so important to this football club the entire way through as their first captain, kicked their first goal in a match for premiership points on that opening night at Stadium Australia all those years ago in 2012. So, but you can tell how important he is. It was that rev up at three-quarter time for a Giants team that was playing awfully in the first 3 quarters. It was dreadful football, but they stormed all the way back against a Richmond team that probably didn't feel like they were in. They didn't know where they were, being that far in front going into the last quarter. But an important win for GWS, obviously a heartbreak for Ward, but I think that game showed perhaps more than any other in his entire career how important he is to that football club.
Oh, absolutely. I love the vision of Whitfield coming over to the bench when he got... it wasn't subbed off, but you know what I mean. He had some time off and just giving him a big hug. And Ward was in some tears, I think it looked like. But it just shows how much he cares for the game, cares for the club. And it was classy from Taranto. I'm not sure if you saw this post-game where Taranto drove him home, I'm pretty sure. It was like...
okay, I didn't know that.
From the airport. Whatever it was, so that was good to see. So classy.
It was. He's been such an important person and such a constant in the AFL for all these years now. And if the Giants are going to win their first premiership, they're going to do it without their captain. We talk pretty much every year. There's always one of these heartbreak stories in premierships, and he's going to be that one if the Giants get it. And there should be deservedly recognition for Award and everything he's done whenever it is that his career comes to the end. And I mean, that was true even before any of this, because he's just been that important to that football club and really the entire AFL competition. There were a couple games in Sydney, interestingly. So we had the Giants one out west, and then back in that on the eastern side, the Sydney Swans absolutely cut apart, and perhaps one of the worst performances of the entire year in a year that has the Eagles and the Roos. 5-11-41 to 21-5, 131. It's always in these games where I feel like we can sort of lose sight on one side of the coin or the other. But this Adelaide Crows team finally, under Matthew Nicks, we've been waiting for this team to finally do it. Now, fun enough, it was against the Swans where they had something not go against them that half cost them as well in the finals. But it finally seems like it's coming together for Adelaide.
I do think so.
We talk about the three talls when people talk about Adelaide basically every week. It's clearly, but it does seem to work for them at least right now. Whether it transfers into September, it's still a sort of wait and see here. But this was a strong performance from the Crows.
Standout performance, I got to say. Yeah, they just got absolutely annihilated on their home deck. 5 goals, 11. You talk about bad kicking's bad football.
Yeah, we've got a few teams in bad kicking's bad football, and that's not just because we were off last week. There was plenty this week to get through.
From Adelaide's point of view, 21 goals, 5. That is straight as an arrow.
Yes,
that's incredible. They're
up to third now on the ladder. Adelaide, Collingwood, Brisbane, Adelaide, Gold Coast, and then throwing in Geelong for a very national top 5, which is a rare sight. I gotta keep going. We'll get to the later because they didn't play this week.
No.
A team that did play was Woodsy St Kilda, and I'm sure
Yes.
in and amongst as he gets better, he'll still be thinking positively about a 28-point win up there in Alice Springs. So a bit of a step back for a Demons team that kicked 7 goals, 21.
Horrific.
Mind you, this is not even close to like the worst kicking of all
No.
time. There's some teams who have kicked. You go back to the early 1900s, have kicked like I think Geelong and St Kilda have kicked like 0 goals 18 or something ridiculous in like the early 1900s or something. So it wasn't good from Melbourne. It was 28 scoring shots to 21, and the margin was 28.
Wow.
So imagine you flip. We talk about with this backing is about football. What if you flipped it around and 21-7 would have been an extraordinary performance from Melbourne. They just couldn't finish in front of goal. Can I just say I don't like the talk about whenever these sort of things happen. They're like, oh, why are the Demons playing in Alice Springs? We need to have as much football as possible outside to really grow in these areas.
Yes.
The Demons have done a great job with the Alice Springs. I say the same with Canberra and when the Saints go up to Far North Queensland. I think it's really important for this, and I always feel like we lose. Well, what about contention? Well, okay, great, but you particularly if you're a team like Melbourne, you rarely have to travel if you're a Victorian team. I think you've got plenty of chances. You're pretty much at the MCG every second or third week. Yeah. So I never like that sort of. Whenever we're talking about these sort of things, like, well, if only they played a few more games at the MCG, they get enough games at the MCG. Oh, yeah. We get enough games in this city. It's just it frustrates me. The Victorian we want everything approach just really frustrates me. Oh, sure. Anyway, out west, and hats off to the Eagles. It deserved to be close in this. It was 43 points in the end. Jeremy Cameron had, I think, 1 goal going into time on the last, and then he just put 4 on the board. Because that's what Jeremy Cameron does, ladies and gentlemen. The dart, as our good mate Ada Box dubbed him. I don't know if he was the first person to do that. I've never heard anyone other than me and Boxy refer to Jeremy Cameron as the dart. Nevertheless, he put on 5 goals in a fantastic final quarter performance there as the Cats got over the line by 43 points. I was looking at a bunch of other things during this, but Bailey Smith 38 again as the Brownlow favourite surely, and a goal as well, of course. 147 on the fantasy points. We talked at the start of the year about who might be the recruit of the year, and it has to be him. This literally he's secretariat like in front at the moment. He's 31 lengths ahead of the rest of the field, and given he's in front on the Brownlow betting stakes at the moment. I wasn't that confident that he would be the man. I knew I had it in him, but the thing with Bailey Smith, the entire time with the Dogs, you could see glimpses of this superstar, but it just wasn't there on a regular basis. And now that he's found form here at the Cats, we're finally seeing what the Bailey Smith that was always there, but just wasn't there on a regular enough basis, and it might end up with Charlie around his neck at the end of September.
Sometimes the change of clubs can do more harm than good, but in this sense, it's done more good than harm. Really.
Yes, absolutely.
He was good at the Dogs, but he had the drug stuff, but now he's come around. He's had a really good change of perspective, a fresh mindset, and he's done fantastic in that new club. A new brand for him, I got to say. He's been very good.
He's always been a bit of a controversial figure, but when you look at it from another perspective, that does good things for him because it means people are interested in his story. This is a particular, if you follow professional wrestling, I think there's this sort of thinking about it is, yes, people might not like you, but they're interested in you. They want you to see your match, to see you, if you think he's in the right in whatever this is, and this is a more general concept than just anything specific to Bailey, but if you're talking about a person, it's always good because if you're on there, if you're with them, you want to see them play well, and if you're against them, you still want to watch them. This time play badly, but people are interested in your performance in what you're doing on a weekly basis anyway. So I don't see any of the negative stuff around or some of the more controversial stuff about Bailey as it's all positives from his point of view because people are interested in his in what he does on a weekly basis on the football field, and sometimes off it as well.
That sounds like the exact same words you were saying for A3 in the interview a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much.
Same thing. No, very true.
Yeah, that's the way. I talk a lot on our darts podcast about the Online Darts Live Lounge, but I'm also a listener of the Missing Darts podcast, and Matthew Edgar talks about this quite a lot with darts players, and Matthew Edgar is a big wrestling fan, so that's where that sort of thinking comes from, and I think he's bang right. If people are interested in what you're doing, even if they're against you and against what you're doing, that's still positive for your brand because people are interested in what you do. So that's where that sort of thinking comes from. There's obviously no Woodsy's rant because he's not here this week. So the horse race, we do have an update on that. Woodsy has seemingly put it all together. So if for those who have only just listened to the podcast for the first time, all of last year, Woodsy was all about Brisbane being the Chautauqua, a term that even David King picked up on about a couple of months ago. So we had a horse racing segment. It started, as we notice every week, with Richmond flying out of the gates in at their round one stage after beating Carlton team they should have lost to by 80 plus. But as the weeks come on, you slowly get to see these sort of tiers emerge, and there's clear front runners. You can see, so basically at this point, this is at the 700, we've got the likes, you've had the Giants and Crows, the likes of the Cats and the Suns and the Hawks and the Pies and even the Lions have all been relatively up there, the Dogs as well to a certain degree. So as we'll get up to, I think, so this was where we were in our last episode. Then Woodsy put in for the 1100. This was for the show we didn't. So Collingwood clearly going out in front, but 3 wide. Geelong there in between horses. Adelaide up on the fence. Hawthorn out wider with the Lions and the Suns tracking those first two. The Giants and the Dogs behind. Carlton way out back and the Eagles some distance back. And as we move to the 1200 now, we can see that Geelong and Adelaide are just keeping in touch with Collingwood, who's still out in front, but are travelling a bit more at the moment. They've been doing it pretty easily, Collingwood, and I'm not sure whether that's a good thing or a bad thing for them, given in 2022 when they made a prelim, in 2023 even when they won it, that they were winning games in close finishes, and that would put them in good stead for those close finals they had, which was all of them, their qualifying final against Melbourne, their prelim against the Giants, and their grand final win were all close matches. So I'm not sure if that's the right way about it now, but the Lions are another team that's tracking nicely. There's a bit more of a presented gap there with the Suns leading again, with the Hawks who've dropped back, the Dockers who are, well, they're beginning to emerge a little bit in this race with the Dogs and the Giants up on the fence. Then there's a clear first half and second half of the field with the Melbourne and Saints leading that. The Dons there are Carlton 3 wide in a pack there of 4. The Swans there are on the fence after their very disappointing performance. Then you have the Tigers, the Kangaroos, the Power, and the Eagles all the way out the back. Now, we have a couple of back kicking is bad football. This has been a regular segment on Extra Time Football podcast for some time. So in round 11, we had the Saints. Woodsy was big on putting his team in there clearly. Let me just go back and have a look. I need to refresh my memory with that performance. 61 points they score, but it was 8 goals 13, which was not good against the Suns in what could have been a winnable game there for the Saints, but they weren't able to. But funnily enough, it was their opposition who are very much heavily on there. The big and bold there, right up in the middle there, Melbourne for their 7 goals 21. Absolute stinker of a performance in front of goal. 10-17 as well from Richmond. Would normally have pretty much won this segment, given just how, but that was even more winnable. For as winnable as Melbourne would have been, that game was even more winnable because they were in front and they could have had that game locked away 3/4 time and they didn't. That and Ward's inspiration got the Giants over the line again somehow, and then 5-11 from the Swans in a night that just gets worse every time. Every time you look at this Swans performance, you pick out something even worse. You look at the footage, you look at the stats. You look at the effort. It just hasn't been the way. Not a great start for Dean Cox and his time there at the helm at the Swans. So as we go to the Wall of Shame proper, here we go. So new additions. We have the Saints in round 11, and then the Tigers, Demons, and Swans there in round 12. These are the only teams left, and look who's there. The Mighty Cats are still there. So the Saints were on there a few weeks ago, basically because they weren't scoring enough to actually be considered bad kicking is bad football. But they're off now. The Lions are still there. The Dockers, the Cats, obviously, and the Dogs. And just looking at the ladder on these sort of things, we're looking at the team that's second. Fremantle are 8th, the Cats are 5th, and the Dogs are 9th.
Go.
Teams in that top half, unsurprisingly, no one in that bottom half of the 18 is predictably on there.
Makes sense.
Right, I've done, as you might have seen, I'm really leading the charge today. Is a weird Volcano next? Bizarrely, Radar hates this. Oh, wait, is the Volcano? No, the Volcano is in here. Right, I've got a couple of different ones for you this week,
Let's
Josh,
hear it.
for the weeks away. Last week, I was going to bring to the table a bit of footy, a bit of audio stuff. Woodsy, in the most recent episode 12, discussed the Eddie Maguire and Jimmy Bartell podcast he listens to and recommend. I'm going to do my own this week. Craig Hutchison and Damien Barrett's The Sounding Board is an excellent. I've listened to that for about 5 years now. It is very good, getting a brilliant media perspective on all these different issues in the AFL sport and otherwise. And they have been big. Damo has been big on this, of commentators not being at the venue calling games, particularly in the AFL, because that's obviously his work, and it's probably even worse for cricket in terms of the quality sort of thing.
True.
And I'm not sure if you've been keeping up, but Brian Taylor has been noticing this everywhere he goes. And a couple of weeks ago it was Melbourne and Sydney at the MCG, and Brian Taylor was like, it's absolutely fantastic here being at the MCG on this Sunday afternoon. I just looked over to the box next to us, the Fox Footy Boys, our opposition, not even here. They couldn't make the it was 2 kilometres they were away. That's hard to say pretty quickly. They were in their South Melbourne studios calling a game at the MCG. It was home of football, fantastic ground. I don't understand what I understand during COVID, obviously, even getting out of COVID. But surely at Victorian
5 years
grounds,
later.
at the MCG, you would have been able to make the 2 kilometre trek and get out and test yourself a bit more there. So it has been a very amusing thing from Brian Taylor. It also started when the fact that KO did an ad and they had this impersonator of Brian, and they used his audio, implying that they had the rights to the Super Saturday stuff and Channel 7
right.
didn't. So it was like,
Sure.
so you could hear Brian going, oh, no, no, no. And it had a Brian Taylor looking like trying to bang on the glass door, like trying to get into this VIP entrance, and he couldn't. No, no, no. So that's been going on all year. It's been absolutely magnificent. And say what you will about Brian Taylor, but you don't like his commentary. But this has been absolutely fantastic entertainment.
That's pretty funny.
Him complaining about the fact that his opposition have not been there. So that was the one I wanted to bring last week. I don't understand. 2 kilometres, just 2 kilometres that they weren't able to get over. But this week, well, really today, this is a developing story as we speak. So it's almost 3 o'clock here. And in all likelihood, a no confidence motion will be passed in the Jeremy Rockcliffe Tasmanian government. And this is causing all sorts of issues with the
hear
Tasmanian
about this.
stadium.
Yes.
The AFL has been clear, and rightly so. You're not getting a team unless you get a new stadium. To all the people who say, why can't you use the current stadiums? It's because they're awful. Particularly Bloodstone Arena. It's barely good enough for North Melbourne.
No,
and you
it's
think
not
about how
great.
North Melbourne are playing in Bunbury this weekend. That's probably a better venue than the one they've got there in Hobart. And there's no space to renovate it. Launceston, there's no way you're building, basing your team in Launceston. That's too far away. You can certainly play a few games there,
Sure.
but it's not big enough to be away, and it's too far away from the south. The North and South Tasmania have always had this big rivalry going on, and they've tried to, and that's always been a big problem with the Tasmanian team, but they finally got this unifying force. Macquarie Point is a great place. Yes, it needs to be a new stadium. Yes, it needs to be roofed, because again, it's Tasmania, it's windy, it's rainy. It needs to be the
Cold.
best possible thing going forward. The AFL have been steadfast on it the entire way through. Back in, I think, 2020, Eddie Maguire did a segment on his Channel 9 show, Footy Classified, talking about this and saying you need to have a roof stadium. It's that simple. And Macquarie Point was being talked about then. I feel like what really frustrates me is there seems to be, and I've been planning to do an entire YouTube/Instagram short form video on this matter, that there seems to be this absolute hatred for sports. What I thought I would do is I'd play a bit of audio that I cut up weeks ago, hoping to use in this short that I might even record tomorrow or the day after.
Go for it.
It's someone you'll know, Josh. His name is Barry Hearn. I'm sure you've heard of him. He was the former PDC chairman. He did a podcast interview. I can't even remember where this is. It's further back. It's probably further back than I expected. When did I cut this together, hoping to do this short? Probably the start of May.
Just like Adrian Lewis, mate, right?
Yeah. Sometime in May. I didn't get to do a short sometime in May. He was on the High Performance podcast, and they were talking about his career motivation. It was a fantastic lesson and his views on things. He's an old school type of fella.
Yep.
Barry Hearn.
Sure is.
Where is this audio? I had this audio cut up, ready to use. It wasn't in April, was it? It was in April. Fair income. All right, I cut this up on the 14th of April. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to try and play. Here we go. Here's Barry Hearn on the High Performance Podcast. What he was talking about, now he was applying this to his home country of the UK, but I think you can really use this in the Australian context. He was talking about government funding for sport. Have a listen to what he says, and yes, obviously he's talking about the UK, but I think the principle he articulates, I am completely with. So here is Barry Hearn on funding for sport. It's at 38 seconds. I cut it down a bit.
I'm a big believer in government spending on sport, which I don't think is anywhere near enough. I think we should be spending the same amount of money on sport as we send on defence. There's a percentage of gross national product that we allocate to overseas good causes, and yet we've got 30% of children undernourished in this country. It's not about inviting test match players or footballers to Downing Street for a photo opportunity with the then incumbent Prime Minister. I wouldn't go until you start doing something for grassroots that gets on my wavelengths, where every kid's got a chance, not just private school kids.
So that's really more about. Thank you, Barry. That's really. So it's not just about the stadium, it's about funding grassroots sports. I've been involved in local field hockey for ages, and the attempt of my club, the Waverley Hockey Club, to get a second pitch has been trying and failing for 10 years. I don't think they're any closer now. Q-Box Hill have just got a second pitch going at the moment, and I'm going to the local hockey every week thinking we need a second pitch at a lot of these places because there's just too much. And we can really spread these things out and have more stuff involved in hockey. So it's not just, admittedly, that's not just about the funding for infrastructure, funding for stadiums, it's also about grassroots sports. But there seems to be just this hatred to wanting to do anything to fund anything sport related. And I think that's completely backwards. I'm with Barry Hearn. Put as much money on defence, you can throw in education and health. Health and sport really should go together realistically, because if you've got a sport loving younger generation, they probably won't be in the need of real urgent health stuff later on in life, you would hope. And Barry Hearn's an example of that, someone who's trying to play cricket into his 80s, currently in his 70s, Hearn at the moment. Wow. So those were my two volcanoes, frustrating things for this particular week. Fox Footy, get to the grounds. Actually, get to the grounds for your matches, particularly those in Victoria. That should be a non-negotiable, and fund money at an appropriate level for sport. Yes, the infrastructure to actually house professional sport, but especially at the local and grassroots level. All of it should really come together. I've got no idea how much we spend in Australia, but it's nowhere near enough, and we really need to be focusing on that, because it'll give young people, focus and hope and an opportunity that so many of them just don't have at the moment in this country and in a lot of the Western world, to be fair. But we'll move on. If you don't have any other points here you want to articulate on, Josh?
No, you're spot on. It's always the grassroots conversation, because that's where it stems from. It goes grassroots and all the way up. So if there's money pumped into there, that's only going to help build stadiums and whatnot. That's all about that. So very spot on there. Right, we have read ahead of this time. Usually we have some jumper things, but we might leave that one aside. I did want to say I did rate Greg Swan's allocation to the AFL this week. A very smart football man who will go ahead and do the right thing for the organisation, for the game at large. He understands club level. The Laura Kane portfolio was just too big. It wasn't okay. It was no one was any chance to possibly be able. It had got the amount of things they were focusing on. They were focused on AFL, AFLW, umpires, rules, mental health. It was just way too big. That's only 10 other things that the person in the football operations had to focus on. It was too big. You couldn't get anything done. My big criticism of Kane and Dillon is they actually haven't done anything. And I think that's a larger part because their portfolios are a bit unwielding. So Greg Swan can come in with a focus. It's probably going to be his last job in football. So I was happy to see him being appointed, and whoever they get for COO, they've got some very fine candidates lined up there as well. Tom Harley's the one I'm most familiar with. His work, he'd be good, but the other ones sounds like we're getting a bit more confidence in the operations of AFL Health, which is always good, given they're in control of the whole sport. I hope so.
But one thing, give me a second here, hang on. My history lesson also appears to have disappeared from here. I did have a history lesson for us this week. Oh, I skipped it, that's why. That makes sense. Apologies. Because I did want to... Why is this? It's done a disappearing act on me because it was there. And now it's not. I don't know if this is maybe Woodsy's gone in and mucked around. But I did want to talk just briefly. Given we had Indigenous,
it's hidden.
It's hidden. Okay, that makes sense.
I don't know why.
I know why, because we got rid of it last week, and because we were running late on time, and we haven't undone it. That's why.
Fair.
But I will talk very briefly about Graham Polly Farmer.
Go ahead.
Given we just had Indigenous round, and we were out for WA Day match there between West Coast and Geelong there last week. So just a brief summation on his career. I'm just going to read you just his career highlights off the Wikipedia page, and you tell me what an amazing player this guy was. So Graham Polly Farmer, a member of the AFL Hall of Fame legend status, VFL Premiership player for the Cats in 1963, 5-time WA. It was the WANFL at the time. Premiership player for the two clubs he played across, which was East Perth. Then he went over Geelong. Then went back to WA where he's from, West Perth. 3 Sandover medals, which is their version of the Brownlow. 2 Cardiff Grieve medals. That's the Geelong best and fairest. 7 times East Perth best and fairest, which is extraordinary.
Wow.
West Perth best and fairest as well. 2 times Simpson medal, which is their version of the Norman Smith. He was Geelong captain for 3 years. He's in the Geelong, West Perth, and East Perth Team of the Century. East Perth one is post-war.
Wow.
He won the Tassie Medal in 1956, so that's the best player at an interstate carnival. He was involved in that was that 1961 team, WA team or Victorian team that won. So he would have represented Victoria at the 1961 carnival. A 3-time All-Australian, which was just focused on those interstate carnivals at the time. It wasn't an annual thing. 2-time Simpson medal, which is the best player at those carnivals from WA, as I get rid of everything. He's one of these guys, almost like Magic Johnson to go to another sport. Someone who's so synonymous with their nickname that that's all we refer them to him as. His Wikipedia page is literally Polly Farmer. They haven't even gone with Graham. They've gone just with Polly Farmer. He was one of the most important footballing people of the 50s and 60s. If you watched my it was part 3 of my Every Geelong Cats Premiership series. He was a big part of that because he was involved in that 63 Premiership. He actually got to Geelong in 62, but was injured the whole year. Came in 1963, was part of that miracle match, which Geelong somehow lost to the worst team in the competition. Before going on to win the Premiership, he could handball as long as most people could kick. Famously, I think that's the most famous thing people know about him. And he was a non-playing coach as well. He is one of the most impactful players, probably the best player of Aboriginal descent in the history of Australian football, which is a big call, but he's got the legend status and he's got the stuff behind it. He's one of the 12 inaugural legends, and everyone has very positive things to say about Graham Polly Farmer. I believe he was the very first Australian football player post-mortem to be diagnosed with CTE as well. So in all these different areas, he's been sort of a leading person in various different ways. So important in WA, important in Victoria, important for the game overall. He's someone that is always on... He's someone always I'm thinking about when we think about the great Cats players or the great footballers of all time, particularly of Aboriginal descent. You can't go past Polly Farmer, one of the 12 inaugural legends when the Hall of Fame came in 1996, and an extraordinary player for Geelong, East Perth and West Perth. Was basically successful everywhere he went as a player. So one of the greatest to ever do was ruckman, but he could go forward, he could handball, ridiculous. He could pretty much do anything at at 191 centimeters as well. So he wasn't he was an imposing figure on the field as well. So maybe the greatest WA player of all time. Certainly, in my view, the greatest person of Aboriginal descent to play the game. Graham Polly Farmer is this week's history lesson. Who can and can't win the flag? Right. Let's get it right. So the top 8 at the moment are the Crows are in there. The Lions are in there. The Pies are in there. The Suns. So are the Cats and the Giants, the Hawks, and, the Dockers and the Bulldogs are just either side of it. Do I want to use one of my freebies there and take the Dockers off? No. They've got a bye this week. Who do they play after? Excuse me, the bye. That is a fine question. I've got too many tabs open here. They're playing after the bye. That's probably a fine question. So it'll be it'll be 14. They've got North Melbourne. Okay. I think that one's in Bunbury as well. And then they've got Essendon. I might bring them on at very soon. I might see that Fremantle might be one I take off on this who can and can't win the flag. Okay. But for now, I'm just going to leave it be for now. But yeah, they're one I'm looking at as they could potentially. I mean, the team they've got, the Dockers, should be a finals team, but it's always impossible to know. But they've got they're 7-5 at the moment. I'm even tempted to do it right now, but I need to pull things up, and I'm a bit lazy, so I might not do that. Right, who have we got here? Woodsy should be next. He's basically got the same as me. This was boxing from all those weeks ago. But here we go. Here's Josh. The last time you were on, Josh, you knocked off 4.
I don't even know. God years ago.
I'm going to try...
2 months ago? It's been a while.
Yeah, it was just about as the season was beginning. Can we put it... I'm going to go through each team individually here.
Do I have the luxury of putting the crosses on teams that I want to?
You can, but I can. Yeah. I'm happy to do that as well.
Okay.
If you
sure, you can do that if you want.
All right. First team I want to ask you about is your Carlton. Can they possibly win the flag, Josh? And now, if you were on at any point in the last 2 months, you would have said no. But I feel like now that there's a bye week, you got Essendon this week, you're gonna stick firm and say no. I reckon we could still possibly win the flag.
I'm probably one of the most delusional.
Yes, you are.
Ever, but we have probably we're ranked the second easiest fixture, but I reckon we are the easiest fixture. Apparently, you guys are the first easiest.
We're technically the first easiest, but with that thing, it's always hard to work out because it's up to interpretation how you define easiest.
It's via champion data, I'm pretty sure, but we have the easiest, that's for sure. We play Essendon this week. If we win that, then we play West Coast and then North Melbourne. If that's 3 in a row, we're 7-7. Our season's back on track. Now, that's what would delusional supporters think, like me. But can we actually win it? That's a question. God.
Can you win the flag? Yes or no?
Extremely unlikely, but I'll give us another week or 2 on it. I will. If we lose...
Okay, what teams are you... I just wanted to start with Carlton. Now you can go wherever you want.
Right.
Who are you crossing off?
I was going to say, if we lose to West Coast or North, then it's done. Okay, go on other teams. All right, let's knock off St Kilda, please. I just don't think they're...
Do you want me... I'll do it for you.
Yeah, go ahead. Thanks.
If I can work out how you duplicate these things.
I think you just... go control copy and then just...
Oh, yeah, I could do that.
Whilst you're doing that...
You're going to see it literally move on the board.
Cool, that's cool. I'll go for another. Essendon, no.
Yes.
Sorry, see you later.
Oopsie.
Suns, yes. Giants, yes. Hawks, yes.
How many teams have we got there? We've got 3, we've got 5, we've got 6, 9, 11.
Port I give a chance.
You can't give Port a chance, surely. You're being delusional. They're 15th. They're 4-7. 79.1%.
That's the same as us. Not yet. Maybe.
Yeah, but at least you're 102.8%. You're looking very strong on the percentage, to be fair.
Because we had thrashing.
Also, they have a tougher run. They've got they're at the Giants after this. They've got the bye this week, and then next week it's at the Giants. I put a cross on them if I were you. I'm very tempted now. Now that I've actually got in to do this, I'm very tempted to use my first overturn and take the one off the Dockers.
Who haven't I put down already?
But it's who can and can't win the flag, which is a long way going forward. So I might not do that, but I am tempted.
We'll put doggies off as well.
You can put the dogs off.
I'll put the dogs off as well.
The dogs they're currently sitting 9th.
I know. I just don't think they've got what it takes to be in September, to be honest. But could prove me wrong, Xavier. I'm sorry, but we'll see how we go.
So you're teeing off the dogs, but you're going to leave Port.
But now, they're just so strong at home. They're so strong at home. Yes, I know.
Yeah, we beat them at home. The Cats beat them at home, so they're not that strong.
I know, but you guys are a different breed with Bailey Smith now. You are. That's it for now. But, I mean, I'll be back in...
I disagree fervently with a lot of what you've done there, Josh.
So time, but hey, we'll find out.
Yeah, when you next get back on the show in 2 months, you'll be able to happily just conk off. Now, let me go back a few weeks.
Actually, hang on, no, sorry. I'd one more, Sydney.
Oh, yes, of course.
They're done. Sorry, I didn't say that. No, they're done. They've been very disappointing. Very, very disappointing throughout, I think.
So, the teams you think can still win the flag are Adelaide, Brisbane, no chance, Collingwood, Fremantle, Geelong, Gold Coast, the Giants, the Hawks, and no chance. So, you've left... So, I mean, realistically, so you left 10... And there's 2 out there which are real easy X's. At least, to be fair to Carlton, you do have an easy schedule. I'll give you that. I don't know what you're smoking if you're saying that Port's still a chance. Anyway, Ken Hinkley's more likely to be gone before the end of this year than they are to win the flag. Right. So in the heavyweight championship, Fremantle took it off the Giants a few weeks ago. They got the job done by 49 against the aforementioned Port Adelaide Power, and then held on to it at the weekend when they were probably not the most favoured against the Suns. So Fremantle, the guys in purple, have the heavyweight championship belt at the moment. And this week, they have decided to rest up, put their feet up and do absolutely nothing, because we have got to... What are the odds of this, by the way, at the start of the year, where we'd get to this point and there's only 2 teams having a bye and one of them is our heavyweight champion?
There you go.
That is extraordinary. Their next match is round 14, where they play North Melbourne in Perth. Oh, man. When is their next one that's actually competitive? I mean, we mentioned wrestling earlier, and just the easy option. So, then they've got Essendon at home. Geez, they don't leave home much in the next few weeks. Then they've got St Kilda at home again. Do Fremantle actually leave Western Australia? You're supposed to travel across the length of a continent every second week. That's the only reason why we have 9 teams in Melbourne, 10 teams in Victoria. Then they're out to play Sydney. Geez, so Fremantle have an interesting run as well. Okay, I didn't actually have much of a think about that. Right, so Fremantle, the current heavyweight champions, and they don't play this week. Big calls time.
Yes.
In round 10, I had the Giants to win by 24. That didn't happen. And Woodsy just keeps trying to bundle up these 80+. They didn't happen. We did talk about that in the round 10 review. In round 11, now this round 11 was actually painful for me because the Cats were up by the positive margin within the last minute and they just allowed one more goal. Right at the end of that match, we've been only talking about round 12, but that round 11 match, and people complain about the umpires because playing the umpires all the time, even though it wasn't that bad. But that Geelong Bulldogs Thursday night match from round 11, that was one of the greatest Thursday night matches we've ever had.
Amazing.
I mean, they had, 36 goals, had all sorts of drama. That was a mark to Ollie Dempsey, by the way. He's being held as well, so it should have been his ball anyway. But Woodsy finally got the job done with this win, 120+ with the Suns, the Pies and the Crows. This week we've got something for you and I. If Woodsy is listening and wants to put something up on socials for him, he's happy to do so. By the way, if there are any honorary extra time members listening in any of this and you want to be involved in the who can and can't win a flag, please do let us know via the WhatsApp. I've been meaning to say that for literally the last 3 months. But anyway, going forward to round 13, I'm very much looking forward to Adelaide-Brisbane. I think there'll be a close game, so a margin of 10 or less. Josh has predictably gone down his idea of Blues is best and gone with Walsh to find at least 30 disposals, despite not being in the most amazing bit of form.
I'll tell you why. He's been a very slow start to the year. He's only averaged 25.5 disposals this year.
Sure,
and some very, very low games. But against Essendon, he has had some very, very good ones. 35, 33, and 29 in his last 4 years or so. And he plays very well under the lights. So if Carlton had any chance of getting back to 7-7, he is the one to perform. So I think he's a chance.
Alrighty. Let's take a look at the week ahead as we wrap up the show. Josh, I've enjoyed this edition of Footy Podcast very much. It's very good to speak football with you every now and then once you bothered to stick around here. So, Bulldogs Hawks will kick off on Thursday Night Football. At a Marvel Stadium, despite being lower on the ladder. The Dogs are in a bit of better form, so they are currently the bookies' favourite there.
Should be a close game, actually, I feel.
Yeah, then my big call match is rare. We see a Friday night match between 2 non-Victorian teams, but this is a good one. Crows-Lions at the Adelaide Oval. I think it will be close. Look, the market is telling you they're pretty happy with Adelaide, but I reckon Brisbane is going to really step up here and try and prove themselves in this match. And then Richmond-Sydney. Sydney are the favourites for this one, trying to bounce back after their poor performance. Richmond can be dangerous in these sort of matches.
They steal it, who knows?
When they really have nothing much to play for. We're not expecting a ton from Richmond. No. They're a team that actually, basically every team this season is either underperformed or overperformed basically every week. But given we're not expecting much from Richmond, they've been able to coots along and pick up a few victories when everyone expected them to get none all year, so they've done quite well. Then a very interesting match over at GMHBA Stadium. The Cats host the Suns on a sort of Saturday twilight match at 4:15. We don't get tons of twilight matches down there at the Cattery, even though that's the most famous match of the last 15 years there. The 186-point match was a twilight one. Then on Saturday night, the Canberra is hosting I better call them the Canberra Giants. They might be soon enough. By the way, hashtag Canberra for the 20th AFL team. The Giants are the firm favourites ahead of Port Adelaide down there in Canberra. They'll get a big crowd, as they always do. Tasmania is basically no chance at the moment. But if you do get 19, you want to go to 20. I know Northern Territory is the romantic option, but it's going to be too impractical. You just need to slightly upgrade Monica, and you give that team to Canberra, and off we go. Then we head out to Bunbury at Hands Oval at 3:20 on Sunday for North Melbourne against the West Coast Eagles in a wooden spoon bowl match.
Pretty much.
Do we have a affirmative number one pick? I've actually been wanting to look. Wasn't there a SA versus Allies match or something like that on the weekend? I saw. Anyway. This could have implications for the draft order, maybe or maybe not, given West Coast is a game and a half behind. But you never know. 7:20 on the Sunday night, because the last thing we need is more traditional rivalry matchups in marquee time slots. Carlton Essendon, 13th versus 10th in a blockbuster at the MCG. Carlton are favourites, but this is the type of game Carlton can screw up.
I wouldn't think we'd be that heavy favourite, to be honest, but again, I can see why they'd be putting us favourite, but again, I can see this actually being very close. It's going to be who wins it in the midfield for me. It's going to be, Cripps, Walsh, Chera, Hewitt versus the likes of Merritt, Durham. Who else you got? Redmond's even in there. You got it's a good battle in there, but
it should be. It'll be similar with the Cats game, I think, as well, with them in field and the likes of Holmes and Smith in there for the Cats as well. And then, of course, Monday, an occasion that is bigger than the football match.
Absolutely.
Melbourne and Collingwood will play as part of yet another edition of Fight MND. 5 matches on Channel 7. So for your lazy snorers who couldn't be bothered to pick up KO, would want to hamstring the AFL opportunities, no excuses this week. You get 62.5%. I did the maths without even having to check it. 62.5% of all the football this week is on free-to-air television, including, to be fair, though, you might actually want to be slightly disappointed because you would rather Cats Suns than Roos Eagles, to be fair.
That's true.
So maybe you'd want to flip that one around. But at any rate, you do get 5 games of football on free-to-air television this week. So you can celebrate this time that the AFL hasn't completely screwed you over, even though they didn't really screw over the first time. KO is pretty available to get. Rightio, that is all we have, I think, for this edition of Footy Chat. It's, what was it, episode 13? Episode 12 was last week. Good show, Josh. I enjoyed that.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Thank you for stopping in again. Right after we finish this one, we'll upload the 9 Up podcast, which is currently sitting on the computer over there. So if you don't listen to that, please do. It was also an excellent show. We've got plenty of stuff going on. Head over to our website, extratimemedia.com. We're trying to get a lot of access to sporting events to report and follow on and take photos of, that sort of thing. The new crew are doing some great job. Yes. Make sure to follow across social media platforms. So the Extra Time One, 9 Up podcast, Footy Chat, the Crumbs, of course. And we've got heaps of content coming your way, hopefully. Technical gremlins notwithstanding.
So there's some more articles on the way as well.
There'll be some articles on the way, of course. So that's extratimemedia.com. Thank you very much for listening again. Hopefully, if Woodsy is still with us, get well soon, Woodsy. We'll see you in here next week. I'll be here just because I'm here every week. It's just what I do, as I show up on these sort of occasions. And that's all.
Go Blues.
We'll see you in the next one.